The Particular Ability of Marinette and Her Discovery of Them by Planter Fun 06, a Miraculous Ladybug, Batman crossover fanfiction. Chapter 6, 3 Words. It took all of 2 weeks for the adoption to go through. Apparently some strange blind street girl with no past that a couple of bakers had found crying in the alleyway behind their bakery was not likely to get adopted, even though she was young. The courts didn't really fight that hard when it came to gaining custody. They did the mandatory home inspection along with background checks, but everything checked out. The reputation in the community was stellar. They owned one of the most popular bakeries in Paris and regularly did charity work. They had friends all over that had good reputations themselves. The character witnesses that Tom and Sabina were able to bring in seemed to impress the judge. Immediately after, they went to the home goods store to get a bunch of items to decorate her room, but only after grabbing some ice creams from Andre's ice cream cart. Apparently, Sabina and Tom fell in love there, and they wanted to celebrate their official daughter by getting some ice cream there too. Marinette never had ice cream before. When she was running through the towns on foot, she heard it mentioned a few times, but she was never really interested, much more focused on getting bread and fruits. Even if she was interested in ice cream, she never did have money, and ice cream carts were served. She couldn't exactly grab the scoop and get some ice cream without someone noticing. While Tom and Sabina fell in love with each other at Andre's, Marinette fell in love with sweets. She had chosen some strawberry ice cream because, while she could only vaguely see the ice cream itself, she could very clearly see the chunks of strawberry in it. The moment she brought the little spoon up to her face, Marinette learned what wonders sugar can bring to the world. Needless to say, Marinette got ice cream all over her face. It ended up with Tom and Sabina laughing and asked if they could take a picture with her before cleaning up all the sticky stuff off her face. After they ate all their ice cream, they went to a home goods store. Marinette was taking the upstairs guest bedroom. It made all the basic furniture. It had a bed, a desk, a vanity. It even had a loose chaise lounge, but it was relatively bare. The only decorations it really had was the box of Sabina's toys, and a few old pictures that they didn't know what to do with, so they hung them up there. Sabina suggested getting blankets and stuffed animals with different textures and shapes. She had also talked about getting Braille cards from a blog she was reading and started labeling things around the house. She hadn't learned any Braille yet, but Sabina said that it would be good to live in an environment that had it, and it would help her get comfortable using it. She also talked about a bunch of toys that she had seen recommended on a website for visually impaired children. This woman does a lot of reading, and said they would be coming in the mail in a few days. Tom talked to her about a group that they could join with other blind children, how they would be able to meet up with them so that she would be able to play with kids who couldn't see like her. It was also to be said that she learned Sabina and Tom had done a ridiculous amount of research on how to raise a blind child. It made Marinette feel a little guilty because she could see a lot of things, so she wasn't completely helpless, but more than anything, she had this warm feeling in her chest. She didn't really know what it was, but she did know she liked it. It felt really nice. The warm feeling also happened when Tom would take her small hand in his, ever so lightly holding it, and would guide her around the bakery. Or it would happen when Sabina would sit her down while Tom was working at the register and have her sample all their pastries to find out which was her favorite. So far, her favorite was strawberry macaroons. They had chunks of strawberry in it, just like Andre's ice cream. Or the warm feeling would happen when Tom and Sabrina would sit down on either side of her and cuddle her on the couch while they watched some cartoons. And Tom and Sabina would whisper in her ear ever so softly what was visually happening. Sabina had been teaching her basics on how to speak French through Mandarin all the time. It was really cool. She had expected to learn French through English back at Nandam Parbat because of the similar alphabet and symbols. Before she left, she had just completed her fluency in English and her teacher had told her the next language he would teach her would be French. But Marinette really enjoyed it when Sabina would teach her. They would play little games with her, with Mandarin and French words. Sabina helped her memorize vocabulary. With the constant exposure to French language and her past knowledge on learning languages and strategies she had utilized in the past, Marinette started picking up French faster than Sabina and Tom anticipated. After just 2 months of near constant exposure to the French language, Marinette could hold a steady conversation. It would occasionally shake. She would mispronounce a word, or would misconjugate a verb, but she learned that it was okay. She wouldn't soon forget the conversation she and Tom had over breakfast just 2 weeks ago. She kept mispronouncing le yogurt. It had taken her several times to correct her mistake. It had been the first time she had to be corrected multiple times. She had avoided the need to be corrected by simply asking Sabina when she didn't know something, and when she did need to be corrected, she only needed to be corrected once before she fixed it. And she just messed up multiple times, and Tom was forced to correct her every time. She knew she was going to be punished. She never did cry before when grandfather would send her to the mean doctor. Maybe while she was with the mean doctor, but never before. Marinette started to sniffle and got out of her chair to stand, when Tom noticed the small little tears falling down her face and had come over to try to console her and ask what was wrong. When she said that she was ready for the punishment for messing up her pronunciation so badly, she saw Tom physically rear back to what she said, before picking her up and setting her on the couch, and very firmly telling her that they would never punish her for making a mistake like mispronunciation. They would only ever punish her for doing something that could put herself or others in danger. He added that the punishment that they would give her would be something like time out. They would never hit her or send her without food. She started crying even more as he was speaking. They reminded her of her language teacher, how he would never hit her, how he would never report her shortcomings, how he would sometimes help her with a few injuries that had gone untreated. She would never forget when he snuck burn cream into their lessons after she had been burned on her back during a training exercise. They were like him. Tom held her in his lap and leaned against the cabinets on the floor while she cried into his chest. At some point, Sabina had come up from the bakery too, and was hugging her while whispering soft Mandarin reassurances in her ear. Saying that Marinette loved to go to the park would be an understatement. Neither Tom nor Sabina could put into words how excited Marinette got at the prospect of going to the park, full of children running around and yelling for their Maman and Papa. It always without fail made her smile when they took her hand and told her it was time to go to the park. They didn't know that she loved it because she got to spy on the bugs on the ground. They didn't need to. Normally at this time, Sabina or Tom would take her to the park. Sometimes they would meet up with another kid from the organization they had joined to help parents of blind children find support. They would often meet up with other parents also part of the organization and have the kids just play with each other while they talked. But it was September, which means that the school year was starting in France. Sabina and Tom had enrolled her in École Maternelle, only a few blocks from the bakery. Tom and Sabina had talked about having her socialize with other kids outside of the organization they had joined. Sabina and Tom had closed the bakery down for the morning and were holding her hand as they walked her 4 blocks to the school. She had visited before, gone on a tour and met all her teachers and visited her classrooms. Marinette had never thought about herself getting the normal schooling experience. While in Inde and Parbat, she had tutors that had taught her things at 3 that many wouldn't learn until they were in their teens, if at all. And when she was on the streets, she hadn't thought about school at all. Yet, here she was, holding Tom and Sabina's hand, headed to a normal children's school where she would learn how to sing the alphabet. She already knew the Latin alphabet, count to 10. She knew how to count to 637. When she got really bored on the trains, she would count. She figured it out after a few tries, but her highest without losing track was 637. And sing songs with other children, because apparently that's what normal schools did. She saw the hedges that sat outside the building and the small children running around inside and knew they had arrived. Marinette was a little apprehensive about going. She had never really been away from Tom and Sabina. Ever since coming into their care, she was always with at least one of them. She didn't really like it when they explained to her that they would be dropping her off and leaving her here. But they had explained that they would be there to pick her up the moment school ended. She saw the woman standing beside one of the hedges before spotting them and coming over.
Salute, Marinette. Von sivas von di moi, ti mapal kama li nos somos recontris lorque vos etes venu visitar l'école? Hey, Marinette. Do you remember me? My name is Camille. We met when you came to visit the school, she asked, crouching down to level with Marinette. Camille had worked with blind children before and was her aide. She was supposed to be teaching her Braille and how to use things like a walking stick. Jimmy Suvis Ditoy. I remember you, Marinette muttered under her breath. She knew that this was the part where she would have to leave Tom and Sabine to go to school. Oh, G savas lu te feris. Tu es un petite femelle très intelligente. Etes vos prête à devenir esco plus intelligent en aller et loci? I knew you would. You're a very smart little girl. Are you ready to get even smarter and go to school? Camille smiled at her. Camille didn't know she could see it, so she had no idea why she was doing it. Maybe for Tom and Sabine? She didn't know. Marinette just nodded at her question and let go of Tom and Sabine's hand, but didn't move. Tom and Sabine knelt down, and both gave her a hug and a kiss on the forehead. She got that warm feeling again, and relished in it before she knew that she would have to leave. After Tom and Sabine stood back up, Marinette walked towards Camille and took her hand when she asked. Marinette and Camille started walking to the school before Camille softly bent down a bit while still walking. Nedinquet pas Marinette, votre mon et papa viendront vos chercher à la fin de la journée de côte, et vont paraître von amour, bucop avec moi advent de rentrer à la maison. Don't worry, Marinette. Maman and Papa will pick you up after the school day is over, and you'll get to have a bunch of fun with me before you go home. That made her stop for a moment. She knew they would be picking her up after school was over. They had reassured her of that many times over before they had even left the bakery. It was those 3 words. Maman, Papa, home. This was no longer a pit stop before hopping back on trains and heading somewhere else. This wasn't a place to pickpocket some food and eat it in a deserted alleyway. Tom and Sabine was no longer, and never really were, a means to get food and take a shower before running away. The warm feeling, the feeling she got when they hugged her, the feeling she got when they would show her new things, the feeling she got when they praised her for making strides in her French. The feeling was love. This was her home. She turned her head back towards where Sabine and Tom started walking off. Au revoir, Maman. Au revoir, Papa. Goodbye, Mama. Goodbye, Papa. Never had she seen 2 people turn around so fast. She saw both their breathing patterns constrict, and it looked like her Mama may be crying. Her Mama. She saw the smile come across both their faces before hearing her Papa call back. Au revoir, ma fille. Goodbye, my little girl. Yeah, she was home. End of part 1.